Okay, so let's get back to the economic side of things. We're seeing a major tectonic shift in retail right now where stores are not open unless you are a grocery store, you provide services and products to businesses and so forth. But by and large, regular everyday retail operations, such as companies like Bath and Body Works and others, are not open, not allowed to be open because of the way in which we're trying to address this coronavirus pandemic. I wanted to dive into this a little bit with someone who really understands retail because he was involved in retail at high level positions for quite some time. Ken Montera is former executive vice president of retail operations at L Brands, chief stores officer at L Brands, also former executive vice president or executive VP of national sales at Bath and Body Works, and in addition was a VP general manager for PepsiCo, and he joins us now here on Jimmy at the Crossroads to dive into what's happening for retail and how this may result in changes long term for the retail space. Papa Ken, we'll talk about why I'm calling you that in a little bit, but welcome to Jimmy at the Crossroads. Good to talk with you, my friend.
Thank you, Jimmy. Good to be here. Congratulations on your new format.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Good to have you here. So let me jump right in and ask first how you are doing amidst everything and how you think the retail sector is doing amidst everything with this pandemic, especially as now people are turning to online and they're not going to stores. People are out of work. My mother now, she works at White House Black Market. She used to work at Bath and Body Works, as you know, for over 20 years, and she's not been working because of this pandemic, not going to the store. But what say you on how you're doing and how retail's doing?
Yeah, well, thank you. We're doing well personally. My wife and I are doing really well. The family's doing well. We've had one somewhat casualty. My daughter's a merchant in retail, and she was laid off about 2 weeks ago. So it is impacting retail in a tremendous way, and it's getting pretty close to home. But everybody is healthy and safe, and we hope to weather through this and get back to work as quickly as possible.
As for the industry?
Well, I think the industry is getting shattered right now. You really have to understand the impact of retail on the American economy. There's over 16 million people employed in retail. That means 1 out of every 10 jobs in the United States are retail related. And that's done through 1 million establishments, either corporately owned or privately owned. So that contributes over $1.2 trillion to our GDP, or 6%. In 2017, a little known fact was the top 2 occupations in America were clerks and cashiers. And 1/3 of all first-time jobs are held at a retail level. So the impact that's having on bricks and mortar retail right now is tremendous. And as you probably know, many of those same retailers that had .com businesses or web-based businesses are not even running those because they're not seen as essential. So the impact right now is real significant, not only from the industry from a personal standpoint, but think about the loss of state, local, and city sales tax that's being lost right now. At the same time, we're dumping trillions of dollars into the economy from the Treasury. Nothing's going in, but a lot's going out.
Again, Ken Montera is former executive vice president of retail operations at L Brands, which looks like is now going to be Bath and Body Works only, as they're selling now Victoria's Secret, going through their process. I'll ask you about that in a bit. But in terms of retail significance to gross domestic product as a percentage of the economy, Ken, how significant is it, and what does this mean with so many layoffs, or people are being told, we'll hold on to you, but we're not able to pay you right now, or maybe they've gotten these loans or what have you to be able to keep their employees on payroll, but they're not working, so we're not seeing that economic activity going on. How significant is it to the overall economy?
Well, I think it's tremendously significant if you consider the fact that it represents 6% of our GDP as a country. That's phenomenal. And I'm not even talking about going back to the supply chain, to our manufacturers, to the transportation efforts that gets the product from wherever it's manufactured to our shores in the United States. So the impact across the world is significantly greater than just the $1.2 trillion that I mentioned. You know, I think the only saving grace for retailers right now from an employer labor standpoint is there's no place else to go. There's no place else to get another job right now. I know Amazon is continuing to run, but they're also running with much less workforce than they used to be because even their sales are down to some degree. So the impact across the world is very significant. I do believe that once we get going again, that things are going to come back. I do believe that there's going to be pent-up demand, not only for product, but I think for the interface that has always driven the retail experience socially at the bricks and mortar store. People enjoy being out and interacting with brands, with tactile touches and purchases, and hopefully that pent-up demand will show itself once we're able to go back to work.
Ken, if you could be a little closer with your phone, sometimes you're a little bit more distant, so if you could do that, that would be great. Again, Ken Montera joining us here on Jimmy at the Crossroads. Let's talk a little bit about the impact on supply chains right now, because this is significant because we're talking about brands like a Bath and Body Works or a Victoria's Secret or any number of stores across the country of all different types, Best Buy, and so I guess they're probably open because of the ability to provide services to businesses, but a great many are not open because of this, and they have products that they source from around the world. This has to have a significant impact on the supply chains around the globe.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, if you think about the fact that if you just look at the apparel side of retail, right, it's such a seasonally driven product line. So what was coming across on the ocean when everything shut down was mostly meant for the coming season. So what exists in stores right now is still probably winter related or early spring related. But what's happened is when they shut those stores down overnight, they stopped the supply chain. They had to cancel as many orders that were taking place. So I think what you're looking at potentially, Jimmy, is a bottleneck of goods that were coming across at the time that could not be canceled, which probably won't be in line with the seasonality of when we open up, which could be late spring or early summer. So you've got a lot of product that's going to be in the stores that may not be as relevant. They're going to have to throw that on sale in order to move through it. And then hopefully they can get those canceled orders and manufacturing facilities up and running fast enough to meet the demands of people that are going to be looking to buy summer-based products. So it's a huge bottleneck to begin with. We're probably going to see a hell of a sale when things get open again. And then there may be an interruption of goods getting to the stores because so many orders have been canceled in the meantime.
That is an important point I hadn't even considered, the bottleneck of product that has to be delivered no matter what, but you can't put it on sale in fitting with the seasons. But I would suggest that, or think at least, Ken Montera, that maybe, just maybe, these stores that have a backlog putting these items on sale will help incentivize people who don't have as much money right at the start, perhaps, to buy those products, at least to be more likely to buy those products than they otherwise would if they were full price, even if they're not in season.
Oh, I totally agree. And I think that's going to happen. But there is also a fashion element that's related to retail that is significant. And I think that it's although you may buy a sweater or you may buy a warm, cold winter item when things get open again, what you're going to be looking for is the freshness of spring, the newness of summer, and all those things that kind of take you out of the doldrums that we've been living in for the past 30 days and bring you into something that's going to make you happy. So don't disagree with the fact that I think there's going to probably be some economic impact on that sale and people will be coming out to buy it. But I believe that a lot of people are really motivated by the newness of item and the seasonality that occurs with the incoming summer atmosphere.
That's important, especially when we're talking about summer. I mean, that's a season when people have more specific clothing that they like to buy, for example, because it's warmer, it's hotter, so you're not going to need those winter jackets or long sleeve shirts or what have you. Now, how about the online revolution? We've already been seeing people talk about the death of brick and mortar stores. To what extent do you think the online revolution is at least helping to hold some of these companies at bay a little bit right now with people buying products online and then having them delivered to their homes already?
Well, I think it's been significant. I mean, if you look at what's being purchased at Amazon right now, it's essential items. I ordered a Fire Stick about a week ago, and they told me that it's going to be delayed, and I probably won't get it for up to 3 weeks because they're focusing their efforts on essential items. So what you're seeing is a ramp up of needed items, not wanted items. And I think that there's a difference between someone's choice and someone's needs. And I'm hopeful that when things get turned back on again, it'll revert to not only what you need, but what you want, the things that make you happy. The new spring-based candle that you're not able to get possibly, or a fragrance that you're not able to get, or something that just makes you feel good versus things that you have to have in order to get through the next 30 or 60 days or whatever it might be in order for us to get out of this doldrum.
Again, we're talking with Ken Montera, who's former Executive Vice President of Retail Operations for L Brands. And L Brands looks like they are selling Victoria's Secret, and moving forward, Bath & Body Works will be their only company. At least that's as I understand it. What do you think about that as someone who used to be EVP of Retail Operations for the entire company of L Brands?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of fiscal sense at this time. I mean, Victoria's Secret has struggled for the past 3 or 4 years and mightily struggled. They haven't been able to keep up with the desires and the needs of a younger female sales purchasing group. And I think that they've been left behind to some degree. And as you can see by the offering price for that brand, it is significantly less than where it was 3, 4, 5 years ago. So I think the separation of those two will be good for both of those individual companies, in that it'll allow Bath & Body Works to move forward on its own without the weight of an organization that is struggling financially within the retail markets. And hopefully the repositioning of Victoria's Secret by this investor group that's buying them will get them back in the game. But they have been a lot less relevant to young female consumers for almost 5 years now.
Very interesting. Ken Montera, I would be remiss if I didn't, since I mentioned Papa Ken before, but I think there's a specific reason why I want to bring it up. Tell the story of Papa. So my mother, as I mentioned, for over 20 years worked at Bath & Body Works. And she was just, she was a salesperson there. And she remembered when I mentioned you, when you would run for CU Region at Large, University of Colorado Region at Large in 2018. Unfortunately, unsuccessful in that endeavor. She said, "You met Papa Ken?" And it's because when she worked there, and you were EVP, I think, of Retail Operations at the time for L Brands, or maybe it was when you were salesman, EVP of National Sales for Bath & Body Works. But you had this promotional effort to motivate the teams across the country to sell product where they would get a pizza party when they were victorious, if they were the leading team in the country. Tell us a little bit about that story. And there was a video that you'd done where you were called Papa Ken in there. That's why I bring that up. But also what lesson that can tell us about motivating people in a time of crisis like we're experiencing across the country right now. Very difficult time for workers around the nation. And then also you've got the President of the United States trying to keep people going and going through their lives and not just getting down in the doldrums.
No, it's interesting. It's the old adage that out of necessity, sometimes things occur that you didn't expect. We were having a holiday season and gift sets were running a little bit sluggish. And so one of my people suggested that maybe we ought to do something really simple, low cost. The top 3 stores that sold the most amount of gift sets over a period of time, myself and some of my senior team would deliver pizza and have a pizza party with them and just sit down and talk to them, and understand what they did to be successful. So we launched that. It exploded. We had no idea that it was going to be such an interesting thing to our field sales force for us to just deliver pizzas. And so it kind of grew from there, and we continued to do it for the next 5 or 6 years, and it just got bigger and bigger. And I think what it says to me is that at the end of the day, people are connected to people. And the more you can connect the leadership of an organization with the individuals on the front line, the more that they feel they're a part of an organization, a part of the decision-making, and a part of what's going to make the organization successful. And not only did we deliver pizza, but we sat down and did roundtables with their teams. We gave them the opportunity to talk to us and tell us why they were successful, and then we shared that with the rest of the country. So just that connectivity, I think, really demonstrated that in a time of difficulty, it's more important to get closer to your front line than to stay away from your front line. And we learned that. We kept it going. and it turned into one of the most successful and desired incentive programs we ever put together. And
Yeah.
that was for almost 35,000 people.
And clearly very memorable if it's stuck in my mom's mind and coworkers after I'd met you. So I think the lesson learned here, especially for business executives and business owners who have employees working at home, they're lucky enough to continue to work right now, is to keep that connectivity going, to foster relationships, do what you can to motivate your staff in creative ways. But Ken Montera, we've got to leave it there. Again, former Executive Vice President of Retail Operations at L Brands, as well as former VP at PepsiCo. Great to talk with you, my friend. We'll have you back, I'm sure. Thanks for your insights today, and be well and have a good weekend, and
Okay.
happy Easter.
Happy Easter to you too. Take care, Jimmy.